The blade bit into frozen bark. Officer Thomas Mitchell's hands shook not from the cold that clawed at 20 below, but from what he saw inside. Rex wouldn't stop barking. The German shepherd's frantic snarls echoed through the Vermont woods as Mitchell widened the hole in the massive oak's growth. His pocket knife had broken. Now he used bleeding fingers to tear at ancient wood 36 hours. That's how long 2 little girls had been missing in this frozen hell. The hollow opened wider. His flashlight beam cut through darkness. 2 small faces stared back, blue-tinged lips, frost on their eyelashes. Mitchell's breath caught. 15 years dissolved in an instant. Another winter, another search. His son Daniel's frozen body under a fallen tree. "Not again," he whispered. "Please, God, not again." But what he didn't know was that cutting open this tree would unravel 3 generations of secrets and force him to face the son he couldn't save. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Officer Thomas Mitchell had been counting down to this day for 2 weeks. Retirement, freedom from the weight of a badge, and 30 years of ghosts. Instead, he stood in the kitchen of his cabin outside White River Junction, Vermont, staring at a photograph of an 8-year-old boy with his father's eyes. December 17th, the date burned into his soul like a brand. 15 years ago today, Daniel had died in these same woods. 15 years of waking up, wondering if he could have searched harder, moved faster, been a better father who noticed when his son was drowning in silence. Mitchell was 58 now, with gray threading through dark hair and lines carved deep around the eyes that had seen too much. His hands, calloused from decades of service, trembled slightly as he touched Daniel's face in the frame. Early-stage Alzheimer's, the doctor had said 6 months ago. The fog in his mind grew thicker each week. Twice he'd forgotten his route back to the station. He kept notebooks now, frantic scribbles to hold on to a memory that slipped through his fingers like water. The blue scarf around his neck had been Daniel's last gift. Uneven stitches, snowflake pattern gone crooked, where small hands had tried so hard to make something perfect for Dad. Mitchell wore it every winter day, a penance and a prayer. Rex lifted his head from the corner. Brown eyes fixed on his partner. 7 years they'd worked together. 7 years since Mitchell found the German shepherd puppy abandoned at the station. Too stubborn to let another living thing die on his watch. 85 pounds of loyalty and muscle. Rex understood things Mitchell couldn't put into words. The dog stayed closer on bad days. When the fog rolled in and Mitchell couldn't remember which year he was living in, the phone rang at 6:45. Mitchell knew before he answered. A cop's instinct, or maybe just the universe's cruel sense of timing. "Officer Mitchell," dispatcher Nancy Coleman's voice cracked with urgency. "We have 2 missing children, sisters, Emma and Lily Carter, ages 7 and 5. Last seen yesterday afternoon near Forest Trail Marker 7. Been missing 14 hours in this cold." Mitchell's vision tunneled. The photograph in his hand seemed to pulse with accusation. Daniel's face, Daniel's age, Daniel's death date. "Temperature hit 18 below last night," Nancy continued. "Search team assembling now. Chief wants all available units." Mitchell looked at Rex. The dog was already standing, ears forward, ready. They'd done 23 successful rescues together, but this one This date, these woods, these children the same age Daniel had been. His hand found Daniel's scarf. We're on our way. But neither Mitchell nor Rex knew they were about to walk into something that would connect 3 generations and demand more than either of them had left to give. The trailhead parking lot churned with controlled chaos. Volunteers in reflective vests clustered around maps. Media vans idled near the tree line, cameras already rolling. Mitchell pulled his truck beside Chief Wilson's cruiser and killed the engine. Rex pressed against the window, breath fogging the glass. The temperature had dropped another degree, 19 below. Mitchell had seen what cold like this did to children. He'd held Daniel's frozen hand, felt how the cold had stolen every last bit of warmth, every last chance. He stepped out into wind that bit through his uniform. The blue scarf around his neck snapped like a flag. A woman broke from the crowd and rushed toward him. Sarah Carter, blonde hair wild, eyes swollen nearly shut from crying. Her North Face jacket was expensive, pristine. The kind of gear that spoke of weekend hiking. Not desperation in sub-zero wilderness. You have to find them. Sarah's fingers dug into Mitchell's arm. Her grip was iron, frantic. Please, they've been out there all night, my babies. Mitchell saw it then. The bruise on her wrist. Yellowish green, old. The kind that came from fingers wrapped too tight. Ma'am, we're doing everything we can. When did you last see? If you'd been watching them, a man's voice cut through the morning air. Brad Carter shouldered past volunteers, face flushed red, 45, stocky build, crew cut sharp enough to cut. His hiking gear looked catalog fresh, tags probably still in the truck. Where the hell were you people 12 hours ago? He rounded on Sarah. I told you to keep your eyes on them. One job. Sarah, one damn job. Sarah flinched. It was subtle. A half step back, shoulders curling inward. The body language of someone used to making herself smaller. Rex growled low in his chest. Mitchell had never heard that sound from his dog directed at a civilian. German shepherds were loyal, protective. They recognized threats. Mr. Carter, Mitchell kept his voice level. We need descriptions of the girls, what they were wearing. Any medical conditions? Brad's jaw worked like he wanted to say something else to his wife. But Chief Wilson had appeared at Mitchell's shoulder. We've got 12 volunteers, 2 officers, and your K-9 unit, Tom, standard grid search from their last known location. Emma's 7, Sarah said, voice shaking. Brown hair, blue eyes. Lily just turned 5. She's shy, doesn't talk much to strangers. They're both small for their age. She pulled out a photo. 2 little girls bundled in winter coats, arms around each other. Emma's smile was protective. Lily's eyes were too old, too correct. We found Emma's backpack near the trail marker. Chief Wilson held up an evidence bag. There was a note inside. Mitchell took the bag. The paper was wrinkled, creased like it had been folded and unfolded many times. Child's handwriting in purple crayon. We're sorry, Mommy. He won't hurt you any more if we go away. The air left Mitchell's lungs. Sarah's face went white as the snow around them. Brad moved fast, snatching the bag. Kids write nonsense. She probably saw something on TV. I'll need that back. Mr. Carter. Mitchell's cop instinct was screaming now. He pulled out his phone, snapped a photo of the note before Brad could crumple it. It's evidence. Evidence of what? Brad's voice rose. "My girls got lost because their mother wasn't paying attention. That's the evidence." Rex's growl deepened. The dog's hackles rose along his spine. Mitchell studied the note again. These girls hadn't gotten lost. They'd run. The question was, from what or from whom? "We need to start the search." Chief Wilson spread a map across his cruiser hood. "Standard grid pattern. Work outward from last known position. Tom, you and Rex take the northeast quadrant." Mitchell looked at the map. The northeast quadrant followed the official trails, the easy paths. His eyes traced to the southeast old-growth forest. Difficult terrain, marked with warnings. Rex pulled toward the southeast, nose work in the air, body tense. "Sir," Mitchell said carefully, "I think Rex is picking up something in a different direction. We follow protocol. Mitchell, grid search. Northeast." Mitchell looked down at Rex. The dog's entire focus was southeast, toward the deep woods where the ancient trees grew, where someone might hide if they were running from something, where someone might disappear. The note burned in his mind. "He won't hurt you anymore if we go away." Mitchell made a decision that would cost him everything or save 2 lives. Maybe both. "Yes, sir. Northeast quadrant." He waited until Chief Wilson turned away. Then Mitchell whispered to Rex, "We do this our way, boy." They headed into the woods, southeast, away from the search grid, away from protocol, toward whatever Rex's instincts were screaming at him to find. The forest swallowed them whole. Within 20 minutes, the sounds of the search party faded to nothing. Only wind through pine branches and the crunch of Rex's paws in snow remained. Mitchell followed his dog deeper into terrain marked "Difficult Avoid" on the search map. His radio crackled occasionally with check-ins from other units. He turned the volume low, not off, he wasn't ready to cross that line yet, but low enough that he could pretend he hadn't heard. If anyone called, Rex moved with purpose, nose to the ground, then lifting to test the air. The dog's breath came out in white puffs. Blood from the padding on his paws left occasional pink stains in the snow, barely visible. The cold was brutal, even for a German shepherd's double coat. 2 hours in, Mitchell's hands were numb inside his gloves. The blue scarf around his neck was stiff with frost. He checked his phone. 1 bar of signal, battery at 62%. He opened his notes app, the lifeline he'd been using since the diagnosis, and tried to write their position. His fingers wouldn't cooperate. When he looked at the screen, he'd written, "Daniel Wood's December cold. Wrong." That was 15 years ago. He deleted it. Tried again. Southeast of marker 7 old growth section. Better. His mind was fogging at the edges. The cold didn't help. Neither did the stress. The memories. The weight of history repeating itself. Rex stopped at a frozen stream. The water beneath the ice whispered and gurgled. The dog circled twice, whined, circled again, lost the scent. Mitchell's voice sounded too loud in the stillness. Rex looked up at him. Those brown eyes held something that might have been frustration or confusion. The scent trail ended here. Water washed away everything. Mitchell sat heavily on a fallen log. His breath came harder than it should. 30 years ago, he could have hiked these woods all day. Now his knees ached and his chest felt tight. He pulled out his phone again. The battery icon mocked him. 58%. How long had he been staring at his notes? Had he lost time again? The fog in his mind thickened. He looked around at pine trees heavy with snow and couldn't remember. Had he turned left at the ravine or right? Which way was the trail? Head east-west. His notes were no help. Daniel Woods, December cold, stared back at him from the screen. Panic tasted like copper. His hands shook as he tried to orient himself using the sun, but the sky was a flat gray sheet. No shadows, no compass points, nothing. "Which way, Rex?" His voice cracked. "Which way did we come from?" The dog watched him with knowing eyes. Rex had seen these episodes before. Shorter ones. Moments where Mitchell would pause mid-sentence or forget why he'd walked into a room. But this was different. This was complete disorientation in sub-zero wilderness. Mitchell's radio crackled. Chief Wilson's voice. "All units, check in. Mitchell, what's your 20? Mitchell stared at the radio. His 20? His location? He had no idea. "Mitchell, respond." His finger hovered over the transmit button. All he had to do was press it, say he was lost, and a team would find him within an hour. He'd be pulled from the search, probably pulled from the force. Questions about his competency, medical evaluations. The Alzheimer's diagnosis would come out, but 2 little girls were still out here. 2 little girls who wrote notes about someone hurting their mother. 2 little girls the same age Daniel had been. Mitchell looked at Rex. The dog limped closer, favoring his left front paw. When had that started bleeding? Mitchell couldn't remember. Another gap in his memory. Another piece of time lost. "I can't do this," Mitchell whispered. "I can't fail again." Rex pressed against his leg. Solid, warm, real. "Mitchell, final call. Respond or we're sending a team to your last known position." Mitchell pulled out Daniel's photo from his jacket pocket, laminated to protect it from weather. His son smiled up at him, gap-toothed and innocent, holding a fishing pole they'd never gotten to use because Dad was always too busy. "I was there, but I never saw him." Margaret's words echoed across 3 years of silence. "He died alone because we were too busy to notice he was drowning." Emma's note. "We're sorry, Mommy. He won't hurt you anymore if we go away." 2 girls trying to save their mother by disappearing. 2 girls drowning in plain sight while the adults were too busy to see. Not again. Mitchell pressed the transmitted button. "Chief, this is Mitchell. I'm losing signal. Can't hear. Going into dead zone. Will check in when I can." Mitchell returned to static. Mitchell turned the radio off completely. The die was cast. He'd just disobeyed a direct order, lied to his commanding officer. In 30 years of service, he'd never crossed this line. Rex barked once, sharp and urgent. The dog was staring at a cluster of ancient oaks, trees so old their trunks were wider than Mitchell was tall. Rex limped toward them, blood trail following. Mitchell stood, his knees protest. His mind was fog and fragments. But Rex was moving, and that meant there was still hope. "Okay, boy, you lead, Bo. Well, I'll follow." It was surrender and faith in equal measure. Mitchell had lost his way in every sense. Now, his life was in the paws of a bleeding dog and the mercy of Woods that had already taken his son. They moved deeper into the ancient forest, away from rescue, away from safety, towards something Rex could sense, but Mitchell couldn't name. The pain came in waves. Emma Carter couldn't feel her toes anymore, which she thought might be a bad sign, or maybe a good one. She couldn't remember what the camp counselor had said last summer about frostbite, something about when you stopped feeling cold. That's when you should worry. Beside her, Lily had stopped shivering An hour ago, maybe 2 hours, time had become strange inside the hollow of the ancient oak tree. Emma. Lily's voice was barely a whisper. I can't feel my hands. That's okay. Emma pulled her little sister closer, wrapping both arms around her. We're just resting, like snow angels. Are we going to die like snow? The question hung in the darkness. Emma was 7 years old, and she knew what death meant. She'd seen Brad kill a rabbit once, quick and brutal, then laugh when she cried. She'd understood this, that some people enjoyed causing pain. No, Emma lied. Mommy will find us. But Emma didn't believe that. Mommy didn't even know they were in danger at home. Mommy made excuses when Emma showed her the bruises. You're just clumsy, sweetie. Brad wouldn't hurt you on purpose. Mommy's eyes would slide away, unable to hold Emma's gaze, because deep down Mommy knew the truth and was too afraid to face it. Emma had started planning their disappearance 3 weeks ago, after Brad shoved Mommy so hard she hit the kitchen counter, after he turned to Emma and Lily and said, If you tell anyone, your mother gets worse. Understand? 7 years old. And Emma had become a strategist for survival. The family hike had been Brad's idea. Quality time, he'd called it. Voice dripping with false cheer that made Emma's stomach hurt. But she'd seen an opportunity. Dense woods. Easy to slip away. And if they disappeared, maybe Brad would leave Mommy alone. Maybe Mommy would finally be brave enough to run. Yesterday afternoon, was it really only yesterday, Emma had grabbed Lily's hand during a moment when Mommy and Brad were arguing about which trail to take. They'd run, fast and far, deeper into the forest than Emma had planned. By the time they stopped, the sun was setting, and Emma couldn't hear the arguing anymore, couldn't hear anything except wind and her own thundering heart. The oak tree had appeared like an answer to a prayer Emma hadn't known how to pray. Ancient and massive, with a strange bulbous growth on its trunk about 7 feet up. When Emma climbed closer, she'd found a gap in the growth and opening into a hollow space inside the tree. Lily, look, a secret fort. They'd crawled inside as darkness fell. The space was bigger than it looked from outside, like the tree had been hollowed by time and decay, but the outer bark had grown over it, creating a sealed chamber. It was warmer than outside. Not warm, but less cold. Enough to survive one night. Emma had thought. She hadn't planned on the temperature dropping to 19 below, hadn't planned on her own body heat not being enough to keep Lily alive. Emma, I'm sleepy. No, Emma shook her sister. You can't sleep. Remember what the camp lady said, if you sleep when you're too cold, you don't wake up. But I'm so tired. Emma was tired too, so tired her bones ached with it. The hollow was pitch black. She couldn't see Lily's face, could only feel her sister's small body growing still and cold in her arms. Let me tell you a story, Emma said, forcing her tongue to work around the numbness. Once upon a time, there were 2 brave sisters who lived in a magic tree. Her voice barely made sound. The air in the hollow felt thick, used up. How long had they been breathing the same air? Was that why her head felt so fuzzy? The tree protected them from monsters. Emma continued. It kept them safe and warm. Lily didn't respond. Emma felt for her sister's chest, panic surging. There, the faint rise and fall of breathing. Still alive. Still fighting. Emma's own eyes wanted to close, just for a minute. Just to rest. She thought about Mommy, about whether her plan had worked, whether Mommy had finally understood that Brad was the monster, not just a man with a temper, whether losing her daughters would break Sarah Carter enough to fight back, 7 years old. And Emma had learned that sometimes love meant leaving. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered into the darkness. "We tried to be good. We tried so hard. But he still hurt you. Because of us. It's always because of us." Outside the hollow, wind howled. Emma thought she heard something else, a distant sound, like an animal crying. Or maybe she was imagining it. Her mind was playing tricks, showing her things that weren't there. A boy with a blue scarf standing just outside the tree, watching over them, smiling sadly. "Who are you?" Emma asked the vision. The boy didn't answer, just pointed to the gap in the tree bark, the opening they'd crawled through. Then he faded, and Emma was alone again with her dying sister, in the dark. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had stopped meaning anything. Then a new sound, different from wind, rhythmic, breathing, pause in snow, barking. A dog was barking, close enough that Emma could hear it clearly even through the tree bark. She tried to call out, but her voice wouldn't work. Her throat was too dry, her tongue too thick. The barking grew frantic, right outside the tree, right at the base of the hollow. Then a man's voice, muffled but distinct. "What is it? Boy, what do you smell?" Emma gathered every last bit of strength and screamed. It came out as a whisper. "Help!" The barking intensified. Scratching sounds. The dog was pawing at the tree. "Please," Emma whispered. We're inside the tree." More sounds outside, heavy breathing, boots crunching snow. The man's voice, closer now. "Emma, Lily, can you hear me?" He knew their names. Someone had sent him. Someone was looking for them. "We're here," Emma managed, louder this time. "Inside, in the tree. I'm a police officer. My name is Thomas Mitchell. I'm getting you out. Do you understand?" Emma wanted to laugh or cry or both. They'd been found. The boy with the blue scarf had been real, somehow. Or maybe she was hallucinating, and this was all a dying dream. But the scratching at the tree bark sounded real. The dog's barking sounded real. "Lily won't wake up," Emma called out. "I think she's dying." "You hold on, sweetheart. Both of you hold on. I'm cutting through now." Sawing sounds, steady, rhythmic. The man grunting with effort. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. Emma held Lily tight. "Someone's coming," she whispered to her sister. "We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay." The sawing stopped. More grunting, splintering wood, then light, blinding after so much darkness. A circle of gray winter sky appeared as the man tore away bark and wood. A face appeared in the opening. Older man, 50s maybe, with gray hair and desperate eyes. He shone a phone light into the hollow and froze. Emma looked back at him. She tried to smile, to show she was grateful, but her face wouldn't move right. "Did Daniel send you?" The words came out before she could stop them. "The boy with the blue scarf." The man's face went completely white. His hands stopped moving. For a long moment, he just stared at Emma like she'd struck him. "What did you say?" His voice shook. "The boy in my dream. He said his daddy would find us. He said his daddy couldn't save him, but could save us. His name was Daniel, and he had a blue scarf with snowflakes on it." Emma watched the man's eyes fill with tears. He looked down at his neck, where a blue scarf with an Uneven snowflake pattern hung, the same scarf from her dream. "How do you know that name?" the man whispered. "How do you know about the scarf?" "He showed me. In the dream. He said you blame yourself, but it wasn't your fault. He said—" Emma's voice faded. The effort of talking was too much. Her eyes wanted to close so badly. "Emma, stay with me." The man's voice turned urgent. "I'm Officer Mitchell. I'm going to get you both out, but you have to stay awake. Do you understand?" Emma nodded weakly. She felt the man's hands, gentle but firm, reaching into the hollow, lifting Lily first. Her sister's body was limp, lifeless looking. Emma heard the man suck in a sharp breath. "She's breathing," he said, more to himself than Emma. "Pulse is weak, but there. Come on, little one, stay with me." Then his hands came back for Emma. He pulled her out carefully, mindful of her frozen limbs. The air outside was shockingly cold after the hollow's relative warmth. Emma gasped, and the frozen air burned her lungs. Officer Mitchell wrapped both girls in his jacket and an emergency blanket from his pack. Emma could see him clearly now, older face, weathered by years and grief, hands shaking as he worked, and around his neck, that blue scarf, Daniel's scarf. "Thank you," Emma whispered. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Mitchell." The man stared at her. "I never told you my name." Emma's eyes were closing despite her best efforts. "Daniel told me. He said you're his dad. He said to tell you he forgives you. And you should forgive yourself." Officer Mitchell made a sound between a sob and a gasp. His hand stilled on the emergency blanket. For a moment, Emma thought he might break completely. But then his training took over, his cop instincts pushing through emotion. "We need to get warm," he said, voice thick. "All of us. We need shelter." A dog appeared beside him, a German shepherd with blood on its paw. The dog limped forward and licked Emma's face, warm tongue on frozen skin. "Good boy, Rex," Emma murmured. "Good boy found us." Officer Mitchell looked around at the darkening forest, at the storm clouds gathering overhead. His hands were bleeding from tearing at the tree bark. His face was gray with exhaustion. He pulled out his phone battery at 2% and tried to make a call. No signal. His radio was off. Emma could see it on his belt, deliberately switched to silent. They were miles from anywhere, in sub-zero temperatures, with 2 hypothermic children and a bleeding dog. Night was coming. A storm was coming. And Officer Thomas Mitchell had just cut himself off from all help to save 2 girls he'd never met. Emma saw the moment he understood the full weight of what he'd done, saw fear flicker across his face before he pushed it down. "We go back inside the tree. He decided, all of us. It's the only shelter we have." Mitchell widened the opening with bare hands, ignoring the splinters driving into his palms. His fingers were beyond cold, moving on autopilot and muscle memory. The hollow had to be big enough for all 4 of them 2 children, 1 man, 1 85-pound dog. The storm hit with fury. Wind screamed through the trees, driving snow horizontal. Visibility dropped to nothing. Temperature plummeted further, 22 below. Mitchell estimated, maybe worse, with wind chill. He pushed Emma back inside first, then carefully maneuvered Lily's limp form through the opening. Rex hesitated, whining at the narrow space, but Mitchell coaxed him through. Finally, Mitchell squeezed himself in, pulling branches across the opening to block the wind. Darkness swallowed them. The hollow was cramped with 4 bodies. but Mitchell could feel the difference immediately. Warmer, not warm, but survivable. The ancient oak's thick walls blocked the wind. Decades of decay had created natural insulation. Mitchell positioned himself between the two girls, pulling them against his chest. Rex lay across all their legs, his body heat precious. The dog's breathing was labored, paw still bleeding. "I'm sorry, boy," Mitchell whispered. "I'm so sorry." Emma stirred against his side. "Mr. Mitchell." "I'm here, sweetheart." "Lily won't answer me." Mitchell felt for Lily's pulse, weak and thready. But there, her breathing was shallow, barely visible even when he held his hand near her mouth to feel the exhale. "She's alive," he said, as much to convince himself as Emma. "She's just very cold. We need to keep her warm. Are we going to die here?" The question hung in the darkness. Mitchell had never lied to a victim before, but he found himself considering it now. What was the truth? That he'd violated every protocol, turned off his radio, and gotten them all trapped in a blizzard with no way to call for help? That his phone was dead, and his mind was failing, and he couldn't even remember which direction was north? "I don't know," he said finally, "but I promise I'll fight like hell to make sure we don't—" Emma's small hand found his. "Daniel said you would save us." "Emma, who is Daniel to you? How do you know that name?" "I dreamed about him last night, when Lily and I were so cold. He came and sat with us. He said he used to get scared too when his dad was always working. He said he made a mistake, running away, and he never got to tell you he was sorry." Mitchell's throat closed. The blue scarf around his neck felt suddenly heavy. "He showed me the scarf," Emma continued, her voice drowsy. "Said his mom helped him make it, but he messed up the snowflakes. You told him it was perfect anyway." Mitchell's hands shook. He had said that. He'd lied because Daniel's face had been so hopeful, so eager for approval. The scarf had been a mess of dropped stitches and uneven tension, but Mitchell had worn it that whole winter and told Daniel it was the best gift he'd ever received. No one knew that story. Margaret knew Daniel had made a scarf, but Mitchell had never told her about that specific conversation. It had been just between father and son. "Emma, how he said you couldn't save him, but you could save us. He said the tree would keep us safe like it kept other children safe before." Emma's breathing was evening out, becoming deeper. Sleep or unconsciousness? Mitchell couldn't tell. "He said to tell you it wasn't your fault. He chose to run. He was the one who decided to hide. You searched everywhere. You did everything right." "That's not true." Mitchell's voice cracked. "I should have seen he was struggling, should have noticed the bullying, the depression, He said you're doing it again. The blaming thing. He said it makes him sad because you're a good dad and you deserve to be happy." Tears froze on Mitchell's face. He couldn't respond, couldn't breathe past the grief that had lived in his chest for 15 years. Emma's hand squeezed his. "He wanted me to tell you one more thing. He said, Mommy still loves you. She just forgot how because the sad was too big. But she remembers when she sees your picture, and she misses you every Christmas." Margaret, his ex-wife, gone 3 years now, living in Arizona, trying to outrun the ghost of their son. Mitchell hadn't spoken to her since the divorce papers were signed, couldn't bear to see his failure reflected in her eyes. The wind howled outside. Inside the hollow, 4 hearts beat in the darkness. Mitchell forced himself to focus. Survival first, grief later. If there was a later, he ran through his options. Radio off his choice, phone dead his fault for not charging it fully, location unknown, lost in his own memory fog. Search team wouldn't find them until the storm cleared. That could be hours, could be days. The girls needed medical attention. Rex needed a veterinarian. Mitchell needed what? Forgiveness, redemption. A second chance he didn't deserve. "Tell me about your mother," Mitchell said to Emma, keeping his voice steady. "Tell me about Sarah. Mommy's scared all the time now, ever since she married Brad." "Is Brad the reason you wrote that note, the one about him hurting your mother?" Silence. Then, barely audible, he pushes her, yells, breaks things. Lily cries, and that makes him mad. Mommy says we have to be good. So he doesn't get angry. But he gets angry anyway, always angry. Mitchell's jaw clenched. He'd seen the signs. The bruise on Sarah's wrist, her flinch when Brad raised his voice, Rex's growl chit, all the red flags he'd noted and then let the search urgency push aside. Did Brad hurt you, Emma? Did he hurt Lily? Sometimes, not as much as Mommy, but enough that we knew we had to leave. We thought if we disappeared, he'd leave Mommy alone. She'd be safe. 7 years old, and this child had tried to sacrifice herself to save her mother. Mitchell's heart shattered and reformed around a new purpose. These girls weren't just cold bodies to be rescued. They were warriors, survivors, and they deserved better than what the world had given them. "Emma, listen to me. When we get out of here, and we will get out of here, I'm going to make sure Brad never hurts any of you again. Do you understand? You and Lily and your mother are going to be safe. Promise." Mitchell thought about his career hanging by a thread, his pension, probably forfeit, his health, declining with every passing day. He had so little left to give, but he had this. He had his word. "I promise." Emma relaxed against him. Her breathing deepened into sleep, real sleep this time, not the dangerous kind. Her body was warming against his, color returning to her lips. Lily remained unconscious, but her pulse was stronger. Mitchell monitored both girls constantly, adjusting positions to maximize heat sharing. Rex's warmth across their legs was saving them. The dog's loyalty, bleeding and in pain, pressed against frozen children to keep them alive. Hours passed. The storm raged. Mitchell talked to stay awake, telling stories about Daniel, about Rex, about every successful rescue they'd done together. His voice filled the darkness, anchoring him to consciousness. Somewhere in the 4th hour, Mitchell's mind began to slip. The fog rolled in thick and complete. He couldn't remember where he was, why he was in the dark, whose children were pressed against his chest. "Daniel!" He called out. "Son, where are you?" "I'm here." "Daddy!" Emma's voice, thick with sleep. Mitchell thought she was Daniel. His mind, fractured by Alzheimer's and stress, couldn't distinguish past from present. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you needed me." "You're here now," Emma murmured. "That's what matters." The beeping woke him, regular, electronic, completely out of place in the frozen darkness. Mitchell's consciousness surfaced slowly, dragging itself through layers of confusion. Where was he? The hollow, the tree, the girls, Rex. Beep, beep, beep. His hands were numb. He couldn't feel his legs beneath Rex's weight. Emma was pressed against his left side, Lily against his right, both still breathing. He checked their pulses with fingers that barely worked, weak but present. The beeping continued, regular as a heartbeat. Mitchell's mind struggled to focus through the Alzheimer's fog. That sound, he knew that sound. Not natural, electronic, a device. "Emma," he whispered. "Emma, wake up." The girl stirred. "Mr. Mitchell." "That beeping, where's it coming from?" Emma shifted, and the sound grew louder. "My wrist. Mommy put something on my wrist." Mitchell's frozen fingers fumbled in the darkness, finding Emma's arm. There, a small device, a smooth plastic and metal, a watch of some kind. "It's a smart watch," Emma said, voice clearer now. "Mommy put it on me a month ago. She said it was for emergencies. She said if Brad ever got really mad, I should press the button and it would call for help." Hope ignited in Mitchell's chest like a flare. "Does it have GPS?" "I don't know what that means." "Does it show where you are? Can people find you with it?" "I think so. Mommy said she could always see where I was on her phone." Mitchell wanted to laugh or cry or both. A GPS tracker. This whole time, Emma had been wearing a GPS tracker when no one had thought to check. Not Sarah in her panic. Not the search team in their hurry. No one. Except the device was beeping now, which meant something had activated. "Battery low signal found." Someone tracking them. Mitchell tried to remember his training. What did smartwatch GPS signals look like to search teams? Would they show up on thermal imaging? Would anyone think to check for a device signal in this storm? His radio was still off. He'd made that choice. But maybe he didn't need the radio anymore. "Emma, can you make the watch call someone?" "I don't know how. I'm not supposed to touch it except for emergencies." "This is an emergency. Sweetheart, this is the biggest emergency." Emma's small fingers worked at the device. Mitchell heard her pressing buttons in the darkness. The beeping changed rhythm. Then a new sound, a ringtone, tinny and distant, through the watch's small speaker. Someone answered, a woman's voice, crackling with static and panic. "Emma! Emma! Baby, is that you? Mommy?" Emma's voice broke. "Mommy, we're okay. There's a policeman here. He found us." Mitchell heard Sarah's sob even through the poor connection. "Where are you, baby? Where are you?" "In a tree, a big tree. Officer Mitchell cut us out, but then the storm came and we had to go back inside. Mommy, Lily won't wake up." "Let me talk to the officer." Sarah's voice was fighting for control. "Please, Emma, let me talk to him." Emma held the watch toward Mitchell. He leaned close to the tiny speaker. "Mrs. Carter, this is Officer Thomas Mitchell. Your daughters are alive but in critical condition. We're sheltered in a hollow oak tree approximately." He stopped. He had no idea where they were. The Alzheimer's had stolen that information if he'd ever known it. "I don't know our location. I'm sorry, I got disoriented. The watch has GPS." Sarah's voice was steadier now, focused. "I can see exactly where you are. I'm at the command post. Let me get Chief Wilson." Rustling, voices, then Chief Wilson's bark. "Mitchell, what the hell have you done? Your radio's been off for 5 hours. We thought you were dead. The girls are hypothermic. One is unconscious. We need immediate extraction, but there's a blizzard. I don't think helicopters can fly in this." "They can't. But we can track the GPS signal now. We're sending a ground team. snowmobiles and a medic sled. ETA is 40 minutes if the storm doesn't get worse. 40 minutes. They could survive 40 minutes. Sir, I know I violated protocol. I know there will be consequences. But I need you to know these girls ran from an abusive situation. Brad Carter is dangerous. There's evidence of domestic violence, the note Emma wrote. We know, Mitchell. We found more evidence at the Carter home. Brad's in custody. Assaulted 2 officers when we tried to question him. He's not getting near these kids again. Relief flooded through Mitchell. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. We're going to have a long conversation about your choices today. But first, we get you out. Keep those girls warm. Help is coming. The connection cut out. Emma looked up at Mitchell in the darkness. Are we really going to be okay? Mitchell pulled both girls closer. Rex lifted his head, sensing the change in mood. The dog's tail made a weak thump against the hollow's floor. Yes, Mitchell said, we're going to be okay. But even as he said it, he felt the wrongness in his body. His chest was tight. His breathing had become labored. The cold had worked its way deep into his core over the 5 hours in the hollow. His heart, pushed beyond its limits by stress and age and hypothermia, was struggling. Mitchell knew the signs. He'd seen them before in other victims. The confusion, the drowsiness, the way warmth felt like burning. His body was shutting down. He had 40 minutes to stay alive. 40 minutes to keep these girls warm and breathing. 40 minutes to fulfill the promise he'd made. Mr. Mitchell. Emma's voice seemed to come from far away. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. The lie came easily. Just tired. He wasn't fine. His vision was blurring. His thoughts were scattering like leaves in wind. Daniel's face kept appearing in the darkness, young and smiling, beckoning. Not yet, Mitchell thought, not yet. These girls need me. Just 40 more minutes. He focused on Emma's breathing against his left side, Lily's faint pulse under his right hand, Rex's warmth across their legs. 3 lives depending on him staying conscious. The Lord doesn't give us more than we can handle, Mitchell thought. But damn, this is close. His eyes wanted to close. The darkness wanted to take him. But he fought it with everything he had left, counting seconds, marking minutes, holding on. 39 minutes to go. Mitchell woke in whiteness. Sterile walls, fluorescent lights, the steady beep of monitors. For a confused moment, he thought he was back 15 years ago, in the hospital room where they'd brought Daniel's body, where he'd held his son's frozen hand and felt the exact moment his own heart stopped beating in any meaningful way. But this was different. This was ICU, Memorial Hospital, and he was the patient. Tom, a hand squeezed his, warm, familiar, impossible. He turned his head, every muscle screaming, and saw her, Margaret, his ex-wife, sitting beside his bed, gray streaking through blonde hair she used to dye religiously, lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 3 years ago. Maggie, his voice was gravel. What are you doing here? Where else would I be? Her eyes were red-rimmed. You were on the news, national news. The cop who saved 2 girls and nearly died doing it. Mitchell's memory assembled itself in pieces. The tree, Emma and Lily, the storm, The rescue team arriving, he barely remembered that part. Men in cold weather gear, pulling him out of the hollow, a heated sled, voices shouting medical terms. Then nothing. The girls? Panic surged. Are they alive? Margaret's grip tightened. Emma's fine. Mild hypothermia, treated and released. Lily was critical pneumonia, severe hypothermia, but she's stable now. They're both going to be okay. The relief was physical, a weight lifting from Mitchell's chest. Rex. The dog's in veterinary care. They saved his paw. He'll walk with a limp, but he'll walk. Mitchell closed his eyes. They'd made it, all of them. Against every odd, they'd survived. Tom, they're saying you'll lose your pension. Margaret's voice was soft. Internal Affairs is investigating. You disobeyed direct orders, turned off your radio, went completely off-grid. Chief Wilson tried to defend you, but the board is talking termination for cause. 30 years, gone. The financial security he'd worked his entire adult life to build, erased because he'd trusted his dog's instincts over protocol. It was worth it, Mitchell said. I'd do it again. I know you would. That's what scares me. Margaret wiped her eyes. Tom, what's happening to you? The doctor said you were confused when they found you, calling Emma by Daniel's name. They did a cognitive assessment. They found... Her voice broke. Why didn't you tell me you have Alzheimer's? There it was, the secret he'd been hoarding for 6 months. Exposed by the rescue, he couldn't remember clearly. Early stage, he said. Might stay that way for years. Might not. You've been working as a cop while your memory is failing, Tom. You could have gotten someone killed, or I could save 2 lives that everyone else had given up on. Margaret stood, pacing to the window. Snow still fell outside. Lighter now. The storm had passed. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep sacrificing yourself to make up for Daniel. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? She turned, and her face was the same one that had told him she wanted a divorce 3 years ago. Exhausted, done. You've been trying to die a hero's death since the day we buried our son. You take every dangerous call. You refuse to retire. You work yourself to collapse. And now you've finally found a way to make it look noble. That's not fair. Fair. Margaret's voice rose. You want to talk about fair. I lost my son, Tom. Then I lost my husband not to death, but to guilt. You were there, but you weren't there. You looked at me, and all you saw was your failure reflected back. So I left, because staying meant watching you destroy yourself slowly. And now I find out you're actually dying. Your mind is literally deteriorating, and you didn't think I deserved to know. Mitchell had no defense. She was right about all of it. The girls said something, he said quietly. Emma, she told me Daniel forgave me, that he said I deserved to be happy. Tom, I know it was just a hypothermic hallucination, or she overheard something about me, but for a moment in that tree I believed it. I believed my son didn't hate me for failing him. Margaret returned to the bedside. She took his bandaged hand, 3 fingertips gone to frostbite. The doctors had told him and held it gently. Daniel never hated you. He was sick, depressed. The bullying pushed him to a breaking point. You didn't cause that. You didn't fail him. You were a good father who lost his son to something you couldn't control. I should have seen the signs. So should I. So should his teachers, his friends' parents, everyone in his life. We all missed it. But you're the only one who decided that meant you didn't deserve to live. Mitchell felt tears on his face. When had he started crying? I'm so tired, Maggie. I'm so tired of carrying this. Then put it down. She leaned close. Put it down and let yourself heal. Daniel wouldn't want this for you. He loved you. Those last diary entries, the therapist said they were a cry for help, not an accusation. He wanted you to notice because he wanted you to help him, not because he blamed you. The door opened. Chief Wilson entered, looking uncomfortable in the hospital setting. Behind him, Sarah Carter, DeBoy, holding Emma and Lily's hands. Sorry to interrupt, Wilson said, but these young ladies insisted on seeing Officer Mitchell. Emma and Lily rushed to the bedside. Emma's eyes were bright, cheeks pink with health. Lily looked pale but alive, moving on her own feet. You saved us, Emma said simply. Everybody says you're a hero. Mitchell shook his head. Rex saved us. I just followed him. You stayed with us when you could have left. Emma's voice was firm, older than 7 years. When you thought we were going to die, you stayed. That makes you a hero. Lily, silent until now, held up a drawing. It showed a man, a dog, and 2 girls inside a tree. Above them, in the sky, a boy with a blue scarf watched over them. The crayon work was simple, but the message was clear. Lily drew that this morning, Sarah said. First thing she asked for when she woke up was crayons. She wanted you to have it. Mitchell took the drawing with his bandaged hand. Thank you, Lily. It's perfect. Chief Wilson cleared his throat. Officer Mitchell, I need to inform you that Internal Affairs has completed their preliminary investigation. Given the circumstances and the outcome, they're recommending suspension without pay pending full review. Your pension status is under debate. Margaret's hand tightened on Mitchell's. However, Wilson continued, there's been significant public pressure. The GoFundMe campaign has raised over $600,000. News outlets are calling you a hero. The governor's office has received thousands of calls demanding your reinstatement. The union is fighting for you. And he paused. Mrs. Carter has provided testimony that changes certain aspects of the case. And Sarah stepped forward. I told them everything about Brad, about the abuse, about how Emma's note proved the girls were running from danger, not just lost, about how you recognized what no one else did, that this wasn't a standard missing persons case. She took a shaky breath. Officer Mitchell, 15 years ago, you lost your son. I was the trauma nurse who stayed with you that night. I held your wife. I sang to your boy even though he was gone. That night changed my life. It made me a mother. And now you've saved my daughters. We're connected across 15 years. And I will not let them destroy you for doing what was right. Mitchell stared at her. Recognition dawned slowly. The young nurse with kind eyes. The one who'd brought him coffee at 3 a.m, who'd stayed past her shift, who'd treated Daniel's body with dignity when she didn't have to. You sang You Are My Sunshine, he whispered, and I taught it to my daughters. Because of that night, because your son's death reminded me how precious children are. The room was silent, except for the beep of monitors. Emma tugged at Sarah's hand. Mommy, Tell him the other thing. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. The Historical Society found records. That tree, the guardian oak, they call it. It's been on your family's land for generations. Your grandfather saved 3 refugee children there in 1944. December 17th, 1944. Exactly 80 years before you saved my daughters. Mitchell's breath caught. What? The tree has a history of sheltering lost children. Your grandfather called it a guardian, and somehow, 80 years later, on the same date, his grandson, her voice broke. It's like the tree remembered, like it brought everything full circle. Chief Wilson shifted uncomfortably. There's more. Mitchell, the media found out about your Alzheimer's diagnosis, about your medical bills. The GoFundMe funds are being redirected to cover your treatment and living expenses. You won't need the pension. The community is taking care of you. Mitchell couldn't process it. $600,000. His career possibly saved. Margaret beside him. The girls alive. Rex alive. I don't deserve this, he said. Yes, you do. Margaret's voice was fierce. For once in your life, Tom Mitchell, accept that you deserve good things. Emma climbed carefully onto the bed, mindful of the IV lines. She leaned close and whispered in his ear. Daniel says you did good. He says he's proud. And he says it's okay to be happy now. Mitchell looked at the little girl, at her serious eyes and old soul. He didn't know if she was repeating something she'd dreamed, or if somehow, in that frozen hollow, something impossible had happened. He didn't know if he believed in ghosts or guardian trees or second chances granted by the universe. But he knew this: he was alive. 2 children were alive. And for the first time in 15 years, the weight on his chest felt lighter. Okay, he whispered back to Emma. Okay, I'll try. Christmas morning arrived cold and brilliant. Snow blanketed White River Junction in pristine white. The kind of postcard-perfect scene that made people forget how deadly winter could be just days before. Mitchell stood on the porch of his cabin, and their cabin now. Since Margaret had moved back in, watching Rex limp through the snow, the German shepherd's left front paw would never be quite right. But he moved with dignity, unbothered by the handicap. The dog paused to sniff at something, then looked back at Mitchell as if to say, You coming or what? In a minute, boy. The past week had been a whirlwind. Internal Affairs had dropped the termination proceedings after public outcry reached a fever pitch. Mitchell was officially retired with full pension, a compromise that satisfied everyone. The GoFundMe had topped $750,000, more than enough for his Alzheimer's treatment, which he'd started it immediately. Margaret emerged with 2 mugs of coffee, handing him one. She'd been back for 5 days, and they were still dancing around each other, careful and uncertain. But she was here. That counted for something. Sarah called, Margaret said. They're on their way. Emma insisted on making cookies for Rex. Mitchell smiled. The girls had visited twice already, bringing drawings and questions and an energy that filled the cabin's emptiness. Sarah was different, too stronger, clearer-eyed. Brad was awaiting trial, facing years in prison. Sarah had filed for divorce, enrolled in counseling, and started training as a domestic violence advocate. The tree ceremony is at 2. Margaret continued. Eleanor Whitmore confirmed the Historical Society will be there. News crews, too, probably. Mitchell had mixed feelings about the media attention. The story had gone viral. Hero cop saves girls in Guardian Oak, national news, morning shows, offers for book deals he had no intention of accepting. He'd done his job. Well, he'd violated every protocol and nearly died doing his job. But still, the important thing was the girls were safe. A car pulled up the long driveway. Sarah's old Honda, struggling through the snow. Emma and Lily burst out before Sarah even put it in park, running toward Rex with squeals of delight. "Rex, we brought you presents." The dog's tail wagged with genuine joy. Emma wrapped her arms around his neck, while Lily offered a homemade cookie shaped vaguely like a bone. Rex took it gently, his teeth barely touching her small fingers. Sarah approached more slowly, carrying a wrapped package. Her face was fuller now, some of the gaunt stress replaced by tentative peace. "Merry Christmas," she said. "The girls wanted you to have this." Mitchell unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a photo frame, handmade from painted popsicle sticks. The photo showed all of them at the hospital, Mitchell in the bed, Margaret beside him. Emma and Lily perched carefully on the covers, Rex's head resting on Mitchell's lap. Chief Wilson had taken it on his phone, and someone had printed and framed it. Written in Emma's careful letters around the frame's border, "Our family, December 24." Mitchell's throat tightened. "Thank you. It's perfect. There's something else." Sarah pulled out an envelope. "The community raised this, separate from the GoFundMe. It's for you and Margaret. They're calling it the Second Chance Fund." Inside was a check for $50,000. "Sarah, I can't." "You can and you will. You gave my daughters their lives. Let the community give you and Margaret a fresh start. Please." Margaret appeared at his side, looking at the check. Her eyes met his, and something unspoken passed between them. Permission? Possibility. "Thank you," Margaret said softly. "We'll use it well." The morning passed in comfortable chaos. Emma and Lily played with the Rex in the snow, their laughter a sound Mitchell hadn't realized he had been starving for. Margaret and Sarah talked in the kitchen, voices low and serious. Two women who'd both survived devastating losses finding common ground. At 1:30, they all piled into cars and drove to the Guardian Oak. A crowd had gathered despite the cold. 200 people at least, maybe more. News crews with cameras, the Historical Society with their banner, Chief Wilson and half the police department, volunteers from the search party, and at the center of it all, the massive oak tree with its strange bulbous growth now marked with a bronze plaque. Eleanor Whitmore, the elderly historian, stood beside the plaque with a microphone at 82. She moved slowly, but spoke with clarity that silenced the crowd. "This tree has stood for over 200 years," she began. "It has witnessed the transformation of this land from wilderness to settlement to community, and it has, across generations, served as sanctuary." She gestured to the plaque, which read, "The Guardian Oak, Safe Haven since 1944, in memory of Daniel Mitchell, 2001-2009, in celebration of Emma and Lily Carter, founded December 7th, and in honor of Officer Thomas Mitchell and K-9 Rex heroes who proved it's never too late." Eleanor continued. "In December 1944, Robert Mitchell, Tom's grandfather, sheltered 3 Jewish refugee children in this tree's hollow. He carved Safe Haven 94 into the bark. Over decades, the tree grew around those words, creating the formation that ultimately saved Emma and Lily Carter 80 years later. She pulled out a faded journal, Robert Mitchell's diary, donated to the Historical Society, contains this entry: "The oak remembers what we forget. It shelters the innocent when we fail them. Perhaps it always will." Mitchell felt Margaret's hand slip into his. On his other side, Emma looked up at him with those 2 old eyes. 3 generations, Eleanor said. 3 December 17ths. 3 miracles. Some might call it coincidence. I prefer to think of it as love that transcends time, a grandfather's legacy of protection living on in his grandson, mediated by a tree that refuses to let lost children die. The crowd was silent. Even the news crews had stopped their usual bustle. "Today, we dedicate this tree as a protected landmark," Eleanor concluded. "May it continue to shelter those who need it. And may we all learn from its lesson that the smallest act of kindness can echo across generations." She stepped aside. Mitchell was supposed to speak next, but his mind went blank. The Alzheimer's fog rolled in at the worst moment. He couldn't remember what he'd planned to say. Margaret squeezed his hand. "Just speak from your heart." Mitchell stepped forward. 200 faces watched him. The cameras rolled. Emma and Lily stood in front, holding hands. "I'm not good at speeches," he began. 30 years as a cop, you learned to file reports, not make proclamations. But I know this." He touched the tree's bark. "I came into these woods to save 2 children. What I didn't know was that they would save me." He looked at Emma. "This young lady told me something in the darkest moment. She told me my son forgave me, that he wanted me to forgive myself. I don't know how she knew to say that. Maybe it was the cold talking. Maybe it was chance. Maybe—" He paused. "Maybe some messages find us when we need them most, regardless of how they arrive." His hand found Daniel's scarf around his neck. 15 years ago, I lost my son in these woods last week. I found 2 daughters who needed help. The tree that couldn't save Daniel gave me the chance to save Emma and Lily. That's not coincidence. That's grace." Margaret was crying now. So was Sarah. Half the crowd had tears streaming down their faces. "Daniel would have been 23 today," Mitchell continued. "A man, maybe a father himself. I'll never know what he would have become. But I know this, if he's watching somehow, somewhere, I hope he knows I finally kept my promise. I finally saved someone." Emma broke from the crowd and ran to Mitchell, wrapping her arms around his waist. Lily followed, then Pereira, then Margaret, a knot of 5 people, 6, counting Rex, who limped over to press against them all, standing at the base of an ancient tree. The cameras captured it. The image would run on news stations nationwide. The family the tree built. Chief Wilson approached with a box. "One more thing. Mitchell, the department wanted you to have this." Inside was a medal, the Vermont Medal of Honor, engraved for valor beyond the call of duty. Mitchell shook his head. "I don't deserve—" "Yes, you do." Wilson's voice was firm. "You trusted your instincts when everyone else gave up. You risked everything for 2 children you'd never met. You're exactly what a hero looks like." Rex barked once, as if in agreement. The crowd laughed. tension breaking. Eleanor called for everyone to tie blue ribbons on the tree's branches, a tradition she wanted to start. For children lost, children saved, children protected. Mitchell tied his ribbon to a low branch, Sanger's clumsy with bandages and cold. Emma tied on hers next to his. Then Lily, then Margaret, then Sarah. The tree gradually transformed into a cascade of blue, ribbons dancing in the winter wind. As the ceremony ended and people began to leave, Mitchell stayed. The sun was setting, painting the snow in the shades of pink and gold. Margaret stood beside him, her arm through his. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That I spent 15 years trying to die a hero. Turns out living is harder and braver." "You scared me, Tom. When I heard you were missing, that you turned off your radio, that you might be dead, I realized I never stopped loving you. I just stopped knowing how to reach you through the guilt. I'm sorry for all of it, for choosing grief over you, for making you carry that weight alone. We both carried it alone. Maybe it's time we carried it together." Mitchell turned to face her. "I have Alzheimer's, Maggie. It's going to get worse. I'm going to forget things, important things. I might forget you someday. Then I'll remind you. Every day if I have to. I'll tell you who you are, who we were, who we can still be. That's not fair to you. Let me decide what's fair." Her voice was fierce. "I left once because I was drowning. I'm not drowning anymore, and neither are you. So let's try again. Let's see if two broken people can build something whole." Mitchell kissed her then, softly, the way he used to before Daniel, before loss, before grief carved them into strangers. She kissed him back, and it felt like coming home. Rex barked, breaking the moment. The dog was staring at something in the trees. Mitchell looked, but saw only shadows and snow. "What is it, boy?" Rex wagged his tail, then turned and limped toward the truck. Whatever he'd seen or thought he'd seen was gone now. They drove home as night fell. The cabin glowed with Christmas lights Margaret had strung yesterday. The tree they decorated together stood in the corner. Presents underneath, dinner in the oven. All the trappings of normal life. Mitchell hung Lily's drawing on the refrigerator, the one with the boy in the blue scarf watching from the sky. He stared at it for a long moment. "Do you think he's really at peace?" Mitchell asked. "Daniel." Margaret came to stand beside him. "I think if he was here, he'd tell you to stop asking that question and start living the life he didn't get to." "The girls asked if they could call me Grandpa Mitchell. What did you say?" "I said I'd be honored." Margaret smiled. "Found family. It's not what we planned, but maybe it's what we needed." That night, Mitchell slept without nightmares for the first time in 15 years. He dreamed, instead of a boy with a crooked blue scarf, smiling and waving goodbye, not a ghost, not a haunting, just a memory finally given permission to rest. When he woke on December 26th, Margaret was beside him. Coffee was brewing. Rex was snoring at the foot of the bed, and through the window, fresh snow was falling on a world that felt, for the first time in a very long time, like it might have room for second chances. After all, the guardian oak stood in the forest, blue ribbons fluttering in the wind, sheltering, remembering, waiting for the next lost soul who needed to be found. And Officer Thomas Mitchell, retired hero, imperfect father, second chance husband, finally understood that saving others had taught him the hardest lesson of all, how to save himself. Sometimes we spend so much time carrying yesterday's grief that we forget we're allowed to hold tomorrow's joy. Tom Mitchell learned this the hard way. 30 years of service, 15 years of guilt, all leading to one frozen moment in the woods where he finally understood that saving others meant learning to save himself. We all have our guardian oaks, those moments when life offers us an unexpected second chance wrapped in sacrifice and grace. Maybe you've been that person too, the one who stayed when everyone else left, who trusted your instincts over protocol, who chose courage over safety. Maybe you've been carrying a weight so long you forgot what it feels like to set it down. This story reminds us that it's never too late to forgive ourselves, to rebuild what we thought was broken, to find family in unexpected places. Tom didn't just save Emma and Lily that December day. He saved the man he'd stopped believing he could be. And somewhere in that frozen hollow, surrounded by children and a loyal dog, he finally heard the words he'd needed for 15 years. You did good, and it's okay to be happy now. Have you ever had a moment where saving someone else taught you how to save yourself? What would you tell your younger self about carrying guilt? Share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Don't. School.